yet? And oh yeah, I felt alive all right. At that moment, I realized how I wanted to spend my last 2 years of life. I wanted to experience this feeling again and again, and that's how extreme sports became my biggest hobby. The next week, I decided I would go skydiving. It turned out to be even cooler than wall climbing had been. When I landed, Grace said I was so brave because she would never dare to do a thing like that. After a couple of weeks, I decided to finally give diving a chance. I went down to a depth where I could see all kinds of cool sea creatures. It was breathtaking. While doing all of that, I met a group of guys who shared my interests. They also wanted to try doing the craziest and most risky things possible. I wanted to join them, especially since I immediately liked the leader of that company, a super nice guy called Eric. We started talking a lot, and after a while, we became friends. Of course, I felt unwell during some of my adventures. There was no getting away from my illness, but I just tried to ignore it. Then, one day, I felt so awful. It turns out that I was getting worse, and I had much less time than I'd been expecting. Only a few months now. But that didn't make me fall apart. It made me act. I came up with an idea to go through the most dangerous and extreme tests there are in the world. I wanted to spend what time I had left living my life to the fullest. I searched online and I made a list of the craziest places I wanted to visit. I told Eric about my plans and why I decided to do all of it. And when he heard about my illness, he got really upset. I realized that he liked me, and that made me really happy. Eric said he would help me, and he would be there the whole time for me. I hugged him, and I said I was so grateful. I stopped going to college, and I took all the money I had and went searching for a thrill. Grace decided to join us so that we could be together for the rest of my time left on this earth. And during that trip, we tried just about everything. I ate a pufferfish at a Japanese restaurant, which was extremely dangerous. I flew on an airplane wing, swam with sharks, rafted down a mountainous river, and all the while, Eric accompanied me everywhere. During that time, he kind of became my boyfriend. And that was quite an adventure as well. I just wish I had more time with him. After we climbed down into the mouth of a volcano on Iceland, he told me that there was one place that was considered to be the most dangerous one in the world. A small bridge made of planks in China. What made it so dangerous was that it stretched over an abyss 300 meters deep. And the distance between the planks was so large that just one wrong step would send you flying down. Of course, they attached a safety rope for anyone who dared to step foot on it, but that didn't exactly make it any easier. It sounded so intriguing. And so, of course, I agreed, because by that point, I was no longer afraid of anything, because I just wanted to feel more and more adrenaline. We packed up, and a few days later, we were in China near the bridge. It really was the creepiest place I think I've ever been. So many tourists didn't even dare to try and cross the bridge at all. But I just winked at my friend and boldly walked up to it. They attached a safety rope to me, and I did a little victory dance for Eric, who was waiting for me on the other side. And I stepped onto the bridge. Oh man, it was really scary. The planks were wobbly and super slippery after the rain. But I knew that this was just harmless fun, and I boldly started to jump from plank to plank. However, when I was halfway across the bridge, I looked up at Eric again. I think there was something wrong. He looked terrified and he was waving wildly at me. What was he trying to say? I strained my ears to try and hear. "Addison, be careful! You have no safety rope!" he was shouting. I turned around and suddenly saw that the rope was no longer there. It must have fallen off while I was doing the victory dance for Eric. And that's when I got really scared. The adrenaline filled every cell of my body, but it didn't feel good at all. I wished I hadn't agreed to doing any of it. I heard someone yelling at me to stay put until a rescue team arrived, but my knees were shaking and I felt like I was gonna pass out. So I decided I would get to the end of the bridge after all, and I started carefully stepping from plank to plank. I wished so badly that it would be over. I was getting closer and closer to the end of the bridge. I only had about 5 planks left when my foot slipped and I lost my balance. I started to fall, and with all my strength, I held onto that cursed bridge like my life depended on it, because it did. It seemed like there was no way I would survive it. I hit my elbow painfully, but I still caught onto one of the planks and hung on. I could see the dark chasm below me. All I could do was stare down and tremble with fear. I desperately wanted to live. After a couple minutes of hanging on, the rescue team finally arrived. They got to me and pulled me off this creepy attraction. I was in shock, so I didn't even feel any pain from my elbow injury. Grace immediately grabbed me and drove me to the nearest hospital. Once we got there, I was examined by a doctor, and he told me I'd gotten very lucky. I only had a couple of scratches and bruises. That's when I realized how lucky I really must have been. The shock passed, and I finally relaxed. I was so overcome with joy that I told the doctor my whole story about the illnesses, the extreme activities, all of it. He grew thoughtful, and he suggested that he run some tests on me. I didn't know why he wanted to do that, but I agreed to it anyway. After the results came in, the doctor looked at them for a long time and said, surprised, that I was completely healthy. He could see no signs of an illness. "Who diagnosed you and said you would soon be gone?" the doctor asked me. His question seemed kind of strange, and I replied that I had done it myself. I'd simply read about my symptoms on the internet and found out what was wrong with me. I always did that when I was in pain. Why go to a doctor if everything was described in detail on the internet? The doctor laughed and said he understood everything now. The thing was, I was a hypochondriac and I imagined things that weren't there. I'd never been ill, and trusting everything written on the internet had been pretty stupid of me. The doctor gave me a sedative and let me go. At that moment, I felt really embarrassed. I left the hospital and I immediately bumped into Grace. It was really embarrassing that I'd been lying to her for so long without meaning to. I gathered up all my courage and I told my friend that I was all right. I was completely healthy and I wasn't gonna die. I thought that Grace would be really angry with me, but she suddenly smiled and said that she knew perfectly well I was fine. There had been no point in trying to convince me though, so she decided to get me hooked on extreme sports so I'd finally get a wake-up call. And that got me thinking. The doctor had been right. I'd almost ruined my life because I'd been too paranoid and gullible. It was time for a change. All of the extreme stuff I'd done showed me how wonderful life really was. But the last adventure made it clear that my life should also be valued. I decided that that would be the last time I was doing something so dangerous, and I wouldn't take risks like that anymore. I've probably done enough extreme things for a lifetime anyway. It's time to go back home and back to studying. But how am I gonna tell Eric? After he finds out the whole truth about everything, is he still gonna want to date me? I can't stop thinking about it. Please tell me in the comments below. What should I tell him? I really want him to stay with me because I think I love him.